Hello, everybody, and thank you for attending. My name is Kate Watts, and I work with the Tennessee Higher Education Commission and collegefortn.org. We're thrilled that you are joining us with this webinar and on the registration process at the Tennessee Community Colleges and the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. As we go through this webinar, if you go ahead and type any questions that you may have into the chat box, I will be sure that they are answered. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it along to our representative from tnAchieves.
Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. We are so glad that you all are here. My name is Kelly Coleman. I am an outreach coordinator at tnAchieves, and I'm just going to take a quick moment to answer a few of the questions that were submitted to us prior to today's webinar. And then I'll be around throughout the webinar to answer any questions that you may have. If you type those into the chat window, I'll be paying attention there and we'll be able to answer further questions you may have as we go along. So I just want to take a quick moment to address, again, a few questions that we had previously. One of those questions was, what do students who finished high school requirements in December and started community college in January need to do for Tennessee Promise? So if a student graduated in December of 2014, that student was required to meet all of the same deadlines as students who will be graduating in the spring of 2015. So that includes, the fall scholarship application deadline that we had, attending the two team meetings at their high school. They needed to return for those. They needed to file their FAFSA, etc. So all of those deadlines had to be met by these students that did graduate in December. And then the deadlines moving forward are going to be the same as all of those students who graduate this spring. So hopefully that helps, and if you have further questions about that, let me know. Another question we had was, do you have any advice for what we should tell students who are ineligible for Tennessee Promise? First, I'll say, if the student hasn't filed their FAFSA yet, definitely encourage them to do so. This is important because they may be eligible to receive federal and state aid outside of Tennessee Promise that could cover the costs of their tuition and fees. Filing the FAFSA is the first step in finding out if the student is eligible to receive the HOPE Scholarship, the Wilder-Nafee Technical Skills Grant, which is specific to students attending a TCAT, any federal financial aid through the Pell Grant, or additional forms of state aid. So filing the FAFSA is step one for them. Depending on the student's estimated family contribution, so the amount of money the federal government believes their family should be able to contribute to payment for college, they may receive enough aid through sources outside of Tennessee Promise to attend tuition-free anyway. So they may not even have needed SNUN. So filing their FAFSA is definitely key for them because, again, they may still be able to receive aid, federal and state aid, outside of Tennessee Promise. Mentors know that, if you've developed a great relationship with these students who are no longer eligible, you're welcome to continue working with them as they may have questions or may seek advice or encouragement. That would be awesome. You're definitely welcome to do that. However, because these students are no longer participating in the tnAchieves program, it isn't expected of you from our end. So just know that and be aware of that. And then the final question I'll kind of address before we turn it over to our panelists is the question about four-year private and public institutions. On pages 27 and 28 of the handbook that we've given you guys, it does list some four-year private and public institutions that are eligible so students can attend. But let me say there are two very important things for students to understand regarding how the scholarship works at these colleges. First, the student must enroll in an associate's degree or two-year program in order to use a Tennessee Promise scholarship at these four-year institutions. If a student enrolls in a four-year or bachelor's degree program at one of these institutions, the student will no longer be eligible for Tennessee Promise. So please be aware of that. It is also important for the student to understand that Tennessee Promise is not last dollar at these institutions. So Promise funds are merely portable at these schools, which essentially means that Promise will cover the same amount of tuition that it would if the student was enrolled at a community college. So this means the last dollar amount of the student's tuition and mandatory fees after any federal or state funding has been applied. So just as an example, if I decided to attend a four-year school and enrolled in an associate's degree program, and I received the Hope Scholarship, which provides $1,500 per semester, then Tennessee Promise would cover roughly $500 of my tuition, because that's the amount that I would need if I had chosen to attend a community college. Any other additional amount of tuition would be my responsibility to pay or find additional scholarships to cover. So I hope that that helps, and I hope that that makes sense. Again, I will be around throughout the webinar to continue to answer questions through the chat box. But at this time, I want to go ahead and turn it over to our community college representatives that are here with us today. We've got Kenyatta Lovett from the Tennessee Board of Regents. We have Nikita Ashford from Southwest, and then Brenda Rector from Roane State as well. So you guys are set to take it away.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Ken Lovett from the Tennessee Board of Regents, along with Brenda Rector from Roane State and Nikita Ashford from Southwest Tennessee Community College. Just a quick, brief overview of how we will go through this presentation for the community colleges. This is really general information around registration and advising for our 13 institutions. We'll discuss about preparation for registration, and also we will talk about preparation for advising. We'll get into the details of the advising process and, and the general registration process, so that you'll know across the 13 what the students need to be aware of and take care of to be ready to take that first class at the community college. And then finally, we'll go through a registration checklist to make sure that you're aware of informing the students of what's required to make sure that they are able to register. With that being said, I will move this over to Nikita, and she will talk a little bit about some of the requirements and other matters related to registration and advising.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. The meeting admissions requirement is a college application, final high school transcript, ACT or SAT scores, proof of U.S. citizenship. Now, I want to take a minute. Most people don't know exactly what they need, but we just need a copy of their driver's license to satisfy that requirement. The headset, GED, immunization, which is their shot records, selective service for males, and the application fee. I just want to stick a pin here. The application fee, if it's not paid at most institutions, the application cannot be processed. So just make a special note of that. Next we have, on the next slide, we do have the campus tours and orientations.
Hold on one second. I can't seem to advance. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Okay, there we go. Campus tours, excuse me, campus tours and orientation. Schedule a campus tour, attend campus orientation. Campus, also the next step would be, and I want to make a note here, is that most of the time in the orientation there's a campus tour, it depending on the college. Campus services exploration, which is just an assessment of the services on that campus. Navigate campus website, because we find that a lot of students that attend college, they have not gone to our website to just navigate the resources and just get a feel of the campus. Sign up for campus alerts, such as at Southwest Tennessee Community College, we have what we call the RAVE system, which means that if the college is closed for any reason, they will send you an alert to your mobile device. Next, we will have preparing for advising.
Sorry, it's a little delayed.
That's okay.
There you go.
All right, thank you. Preparing for advising. Understanding that there's two different types of career paths in the community college. There's the actual career versus the transfer program. Now, for a career, that is, they prepare you to go straight to the workplace. You will get a few of the general education courses, usually a English or math, maybe a social behavior science or a humanities. But that career path is designed for you to go straight into the workplace after graduation. The transfer pathway or the transfer programs are designed to, after 2 years after graduating, you go straight to a 4-year college. And most of the time, those courses will transfer. A lot of, I can say 99% of the time, those courses will transfer to, because we have articulation agreements with the 4-year colleges. Choosing a career, we know from statistics that first-timers sometimes change their majors several times. So we want to just make sure that as advisors, we go into a model called proactive advising to ensure this is the career for them. Of course, as they progress through their college years, they may find that something else may be more pliable for them, and that's fine, but we do want to try to start them off on the right path. Choosing a focus or major, again, that goes back to the career. We have a lot of students here at Southwest and Memphis. Everybody wants to be a nurse. So we have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people coming in wanting to be a nurse, and we just as advisors have to go a little bit deeper as far as asking those proactive questions. When they are selecting a schedule, factoring in their work schedules, and transportation is so very important, because if you find a student who is a night owl, they're not going to do very well in their morning classes if they have a 7:30 class. And we as advisors, we go over that with them and talk with them about that type, what type of person are they? Do they do well in the morning, afternoon, or evening? And transportation here in Memphis is very important because we have a lot of people that use the public transportation. So getting to class at 7:30 if the bus is late, that's not a conducive schedule. You may need to give yourself a little bit more time. Now, reviewing the college catalogs, most college catalogs now are online. And students, unless they're appointed to go to the catalog, they do not. So we would love for them to go visit the catalog so they'll know exactly what classes, so they can also be informed. The next slide we'll have choosing a focus or career. They can go, as we talked about, most students, according to statistics, change their major twice or more during their college career. They may find this very helpful, choosing a career or focus. This is one of the career planning tools that they can go to, and they can sign in and they can evaluate their strengths and weaknesses. Here at Southwest, we use what we call Kruder, K-U-D-E-R, and that's a career assessment as well. Now I turn it over to Ms. Brenda.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brenda Rector. I'm the Registrar and Director of Admissions and Records at Roane State Community College. What we want to talk about a little bit today is your students will be setting up their student online account at the institution they choose, and the picture you're seeing looks like it's Pellissippi, but we all have one of these types of online portals, we call them, for our students. This is a very, very important part of their ability to navigate through the registration, schedules, drop ads, everything that they do at the institutions. So one of the very first things that your student is going to want to do when they get admitted to their institution is to find out how they go about setting up their online accounts. As you see, Pellissippi has CougarNet. Ours is called RaiderNet. Everybody has a net of some sort. But this is going to be very important for them to get in and set this up because it's such a great communication opportunity for these students to utilize this feature. Once they get it set up and get in there, they will probably have institutional email. They'll have, if they're Susie Smith, they'll probably be something like smith roanstate.edu. The email, pardon me, although we know students, we find our students don't check email as much as we would like them to. Sorry, April doesn't agree with me. This is the way this is our primary communication with our students, to let them know things that they need to be aware of. So they need to get into their accounts after they've set it up and check their email frequently, so they can, and so they will know about anything that's going on, particularly with them, that they need to be aware of. Our financial aid office may send them some information about something they still need, or I may send them something about a class that's canceled, or there's a problem. So I know they have all kinds of social media these days, but their email accounts at their institution is going to be very important to them. Once they establish their online account, they just need to get in there and look around and see what all is available to them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in this online account. For instance, students, not only do they have email, but that's where they do their registration. That's where they can drop classes, add classes. They can run, at most institutions, they'll be able to run a degree evaluation on their major and see exactly what classes they have fulfilled and what classes they still lack. They can even do a what if they're thinking about changing their major. They can run this degree evaluation against the major that they're thinking about, and it'll tell them what classes they've already fulfilled and what classes they would lack. So it's a wonderful tool for them. Also, they have an unofficial transcript that will show pretty much what a transcript would show if they had it sent to another institution. The classes that they've had each semester, their GPA, their grades, the number of hours they've earned, all that information is in there and available to them. So there is a lot of things that are available in the students' online accounts that at their fingertips to help them navigate. So they just need to get in there and look at each of the links that's in there. We have Nikita mentioned an alert system. We have a system inside our students' online accounts with alerts that says, for them only, that says you still need such and such for financial aid, or this has been done, or you still need to do this. So it's just a big red alert box. It's the first thing they see. So it catches their attention and they can take care of matters right away. Okay, registration dates, please. This information, again, is going to be online in their online accounts. It's going to be available all over the institution's website about registration dates. For instance, for fall semester, we open up early registration this coming Monday, April the 6th, for fall registration. Now, the thing that they'll need to look for too, some institutions will have certain times for certain populations to register. So that'll be something they want to look at. For instance, first-time freshmen may have the first week of registration to register, or their time might be later. Some institutions will have holds on the registration until the student meets a particular time. So whatever time, they need to check their status to see when it is that they are eligible to register. Of course, before that, they need to make sure that in most cases, they're going to have a complete admission file and be accepted to the institution to be able to get registered. So they need, from the time they submit their application, and this was probably covered in your prior webinar, but from the time they submit the application until they get a status of accepted, they need to keep close watch on their admissions account to make sure that when it gets time to register, everything's in, they've been accepted, and they can register without any issues. Some institutions, as I said, will you'll have to see an advisor before the student can register, and we will talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but these classes do fill up quick, particularly in, of course, the most popular times, and if you have a student who has obligations, work, family, and they really need their classes at a particular time, then it's important that they get in there early so that they can get into the class times that will work for their situation. So, okay, talk about meeting with an advisor. Most institutions are going to require that a student speak with an advisor about the classes they need to take, particularly their first semester, and make sure they're appropriate to their major, and that they are classes that they have met the prerequisites for. In other words, you can't take English Comp 2 until you've met the requirement of English Comp 1. So an advisor can help students navigate through these kinds of things so that they can get a schedule worked out, and when registration opens, they're ready to go. Now, even if the institution doesn't put any kind of registration hold on the student, which is our case here at Roane State, we strongly encourage the student to sit down with an advisor and not only look at what they need to take that first semester that they're with us, but they need a graduation plan from day one. So it's a good time to kind of get a look at the requirements for that student's major over the next 2 years that they're going to be working towards an associate degree. So certainly you're going to focus on the first semester and the classes that you need to get started in, and they'll need to look at whether or not the student has any developmental level requirements, you know, other things that are particular to that student. So that's important that they meet with an advisor to work out their class schedule and how many hours they need to take, and what order classes need to be taken in. But it's also important that they have a snapshot view of, okay, this is this semester, this is the second semester, and this is what I'm going to probably need to do the third semester and the fourth semester, so that they kind of have a holistic graduation plan in mind. If they have a clear idea of what goals and what their academic focus is, that's great. But as Nikita said earlier, that changes. Around here we say students change their major more than their socks. So they're prone to sit in classes sometimes with students and they say, oh, I'm a sociology major and we did this fun thing, so they think, oh, okay, I'll be a sociology major, without much research. So if we can help them to focus on clarifying their career goals and focusing on, if they're not sure, taking maybe taking some classes early on that will help them to determine what would be a good major for them. Sometimes people that want to be nurses don't realize, there's a lot of blood involved in that, and they don't do blood. So those are things that we have to try to sometimes emphasize to students, that they're in majors that they're talking about, is the work really what you think the work is going to be? And also, and I can't emphasize this enough for you two students, have have a record, keep records of what you do. If you turn, I would say start a school folder, and in that folder, keep a copy of the immunization records that you had to turn in. Keep a copy of the tax document that you had to provide for financial aid. Keep a copy of everything that you turn into us. Keep a copy and write down names. If you call and talk to me, write down. I talked to Brenda Rector on April the 1st, and she told me this, because we talked to students a lot who said, well, I talked to some lady and she told me I could do whatever. Well, if the student can't give us a name of somebody that they talked to, there's really no way we can research it to see if they had got the right information from the right person. So we highly encourage students to keep records of who they talked with, when they talked with them, that gives them credibility when they're pleading their case. So start a folder. When you apply, keep a copy of everything in that folder that you've had to turn in, any email correspondence, just anything that you think that might be helpful or the student thinks that might be helpful down the road. Okay, registering for classes. Pardon me. As we talked about earlier, registration for classes is done in the student's online account. Again, they need to be aware of when and what day, and most of the time once registration's open, it will be open until classes start. But they just need to be aware, make sure they know when they can get in their online account, and be ready to register when that day comes. Now, many institutions will have an online tutorial. Here at Rome State, we have a tutorial inside that the students can access inside their online account that kind of walks them through how to register. They literally don't put in courses, they put in course reference numbers. So if a student has chosen the section of Comp 1 they want to take, it will have a course reference number of something like 80532, and that number is what they put into the registration system in their online account to get registered for classes, at least at all of the CBR institutions. So they need to watch the tutorial, or a lot of times if there's not an online tutorial, there'll be something on the website that's directions as to how to register. And so when the registration comes around, they will know how to go in and get registered for classes. Once they do that, once they get registered for classes, and this is something else that we say to students all the time, because so often, in the end, they weren't registered for what they thought they registered for. And for some reason, the system didn't put them in their class, and they've gone, and they've never really been officially registered. So once they register, they need to print out a copy of their class schedule and check it closely so that they can see, yes, it shows right here that I am registered for the classes at the time, and print out what we call a detailed schedule that has the days, the times, the campus that it's on, if institutions have multiple campuses, the room, to make sure that they got registered, first of all, for the class they wanted, and secondly, the class they wanted at the particular campus they needed at the time and the day that they needed at. So they need to review that schedule closely after they have submitted it to make sure that it is what they thought they registered for, and that they got all of the classes that they had hoped to get. After that, they need to be aware of any deadlines for dropping classes particularly. all institutions will have a last day to drop a class, and it's very important, excuse me, that they know what that last day to drop is, because pretty much that's what it means. That's the last day that they can drop a class for whatever reason that they need to drop it. But before they drop it, they should also be sure that they check with the Tennessee Promise people or the Hope Scholarship people at that campus, or the financial aid office at that campus, to make sure it doesn't have a negative impact on any type of financial aid they're receiving. They don't want to find that out after the fact. They want to find that out before they make changes in their class schedule. Okay, I think that's the end of my slides.
All right, thank you, Brenda, and thank you, Nikita, for the presentation. I saw some questions on the chat, but just for our facilitators, do we have any questions for the community college group?
I believe that the only questions are the ones that came through. The audience is only able to, is all muted at the moment, so they are only able to ask questions through that dialog box.
Good deal. Okay, then it sounds like from what I'm reading on the chat that you've answered those questions. So
Great.
We are complete with our presentation, and I will hand it over to Shelley Travis from the TCAPS.
Thank you, Dr. Levitt. Good afternoon. I'm Shelley Travis. I'm Assistant Vice Chancellor for the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology in Student Services. And Kenyatta, I'm having an issue with this as well. There we go. I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing to ensure the success of our students at the community colleges and the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. We appreciate all the time that you are taking with your students, and then also the time that you're spending today on this webinar to actually learn more about the registration process. Just to let you know, this is what we're going to cover today during our presentation for the Colleges of Applied Technology. General information for the 2017 TCAPS as it applies to both admissions, reminders, and registration. Our admissions information, campus tours, and then registration. Admissions for the Tennessee Promise for the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. First, the students must complete the application for enrollment. At a College of Applied Technology, we do not have application fees at all 27 of our campuses. So your students do need to complete the application in order to be admitted into their program. However, there is no application fee that goes along with that. On their application, in order to begin at a Tennessee College of Applied Technology, they must indicate the program area of interest so that they can, so that they may be placed on the list for that program. Many of our campuses, if it is not required in the admissions process, it is highly encouraged that they go to the College of Applied Technology and actually meet with a counselor and or instructor. To meet with the instructor, to actually have an opportunity to talk about their future career field and the job opportunities that are available there, and also their education, and to meet with a counselor to make sure that they understand, in addition to financial aid, all the other services that are provided for them at the College of Applied Technology, and to ask any questions to make sure that they are entering into the right program area for them. All of our Promise students have already completed the free application for federal student aid. As was mentioned earlier, if your student has lost their eligibility, one thing to make sure that they do is, if they have not already, is to complete that FAFSA form, because any Pell money or Pell funds or while we're naked at a TCAT, that application also applies those students for any additional aid that's available at a TCAT. They must submit their high school diploma or transcript, or their GED or HiSET transcript as well. Submit the proof of immunization. For our male students, their proof of their selected service, and they must schedule any pre-enrollment testing if it is applicable to their program area. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. I do encourage you to actually suggest that your students, in addition to going to this through this checklist, contact your local TCAT for any program-specific requirements to ensure that there are no additional requirements for admissions for their specific program. So a program, an example of a program with a special admissions requirement is our practical nursing program statewide. Our practical nursing program does have additional admissions requirements. There is a selection process that is required. Unlike our other courses, which are open entry, open exit, meaning that students can start in any term and at any period during enrollment in any term. Our cohort classes, our students start with a class and end with their class, so they have set start and end dates. In addition, those students that are interested in practical nursing and several other of our allied health programs will have to either submit COMPAS or ACT scores as part of their selection process for these programs. For specific information, again, for special admissions requirements, please contact your local TCAT for that information. Once a student has completed all of their admissions requirements, they have their application in and they've selected their program, we do want to encourage our students to schedule a campus visit and tour so that they will learn more about the classes that we have there. They can meet with their instructor and their counselor, and they can learn more about the services that are available to them in addition to the financial aid that they may receive. For some of our campuses, the campus tour and meetings with instructors and counselors are required. Not all campuses require these steps, and many of our campuses, as we'll talk about in just a moment, include the campus tour within their new student orientation program. As your students are beginning the registration process and admissions process at a TCAT, basically the students have two choices that they have to make. First, they need to select their program. A student, unlike at a community college, only registers for their program of interest, and they select that during the admissions process. All of the courses that are actually a portion of that program are laid out for them, and so when they register for that program, they register for all the courses that they need for that term or within the number of hours that they are registering for. Then students choose full-time day or evening enrollments. Our courses, our programs across the state for full-time day students meet for 6 hours a day for full-time enrollment. And so those are basically the choices that the students have. They need to know their program and then whether they want to come full-time day or in the evening. Our program lengths are from anywhere from 4 months to our longest program is 2 years, and your program of study for each program is completely laid out as far as the courses that you will take and in the order that you will take them. Students may use Promise for programs that do not have a fall start at a TCAT as long as Promise and TCAT admission requirements have been met by the fall term. So I get this question in most presentations that I have done for the Tennessee Promise. If you're a student, we do have many allied health programs that only begin once a year. For example, practical nursing and surgical tech are two of our popular programs that may only have a May 1 or January 1 start for cohort programs. If that is the case, as long as the student has their application and their information in and they continue to meet Promise requirements, by the fall, then they will be placed on the list for that program at the next starting time, and they will be able to enter in that program with promise intact for those for those programs that do not have a fall start for a TCAT. So once you have completed all the admissions processes, you've decided your program that you're going to enter into, and you've decided whether you are going to go in the day or the evening, students will be contacted by a TCAT representative regarding their start date. We are open entry, open exit, so as soon as a position is available within a program, then students are able to begin their program of study. It may be a few weeks into the term. We do not, all of our students do not necessarily have to start on the first day. So students will be contacted by their TCAT representative regarding their start date. Students then, and when they are contacted, they will also be told their orientation dates or times that are available for them. Students will attend a new student orientation. For many of our campuses, new student orientation is done approximately 1 month prior to their start date. That does vary by campus. During the new student orientation, students will receive a notice from the institution, but they will go through all the policies and procedures on campus. They will also go through their financial aid requirements and any deadlines or additional paperwork that needs to be submitted for their students. They will assist them with that information at that time. Again, they'll complete any remaining paperwork, and on many campuses, they do incorporate a campus tour within their new student orientation. Then our campuses, on the first day of class for most campuses, your students will complete their registration process. Our registration is all done on site at a campus, and it will either be on the student's first day of class, or in some cases we do pre-registration. For many students, if there is a $0 balance for students, they do not owe anything. They will conduct a pre-registration process, and then they will just receive their receipts on their first day. That does vary by campus, but again, most campuses, all campuses do on-site registration at a TCAT. Again, we are open entry, open exit, meaning that students can begin in most programs, except for a few allied health cohort programs. They can begin when there is a space available in the term, and then students may graduate early as well, or they may take longer depending on how long it takes them to master the competencies within that program. So once the student has gone through these steps, they're ready to start the college career at a TCAT, and we have student services staff that are very excited about assisting your Tennessee Promise students with this process. If you need more information about a specific TCAT, you can find all of the contact information for each TCAT, the link below on the CBR webpage. And then if you need any additional assistance or have any other questions, general questions about admissions, registration, or about attending a TCAT, please feel free to contact me at your convenience as well. And that does conclude my presentation on the registration and admissions process for the 27 Colleges of Applied Technology. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you all so much for presenting. I did have a few questions come in during the presentations that I was hoping some of the panelists might be able to help me answer. So first off, for the TCAT, Shelley, is an evening program still considered to be a full-time program?
That is a very good question, and actually something that we should have addressed, so thank you for bringing that up. A student is actually, for TCATs only, we look at full-time programs. And full-time programs is, an evening program is considered a full-time program at a TCAPS. Even though the student does not attend as many hours as they do during the day, that is still considered, for the purposes of this legislation, a full-time program, and students will be eligible.
And then another one for Southwest Community College. Does Southwest require an advisor meeting? So that might be a question that we are able to get back to you with privately after this presentation. And then we have one on the transfer process. Is it possible to transfer the Tennessee Promise Scholarship from a community college to a TCAT, or vice versa, if a student wishes to transfer schools after they've been admitted into one type of institution or have attended?
It is possible. However, the student must continue to meet all of the eligibility for promise, meaning that they must have maintain continuous enrollment. So if they transfer, they would have to transfer directly from one to another and not and have continuous enrollment from one term to the next term. They also would have to meet satisfactory academic progress. In addition, they have to have enough promise remaining to complete the program that they're transferring into.
Okay, great.
So there are a lot of things to consider, but it is a possibility.
All right, and also another question that I do not know if this is the same for both the TCATs and the community colleges, but at what point in the admissions process is a student able to set up their university net account to be able to handle their finances?
Brenda, if you're on the call, you can answer it, or I can answer it. It doesn't matter.
In most cases, the accounts are tied to registration, so their fees are calculated based on the information or the registration information and the charges. So at that point, once they're registered, they would have a business office account as well.
And to add to that, some institutions at the point of admissions will assign them their account number or their account information. So it just varies, but to Brenda's point, it becomes more efficient with data once the student has registered for a course.
And as far as the TCAT is considered, as far as online account access, if you're talking about the financial aid aspect, the TCATs do not have that online portal for students to be able to see their accounts, their financial aid accounts. They do receive an award letter from the institution, and then they can also access those their accounts by talking to their financial aid office at the campus once they are registered.
But do they still need an institutional email address to register for classes, correct?
They do not. For TCATs, for registration, it is not required. We do not do online registration. We do all on-site registration.
Okay, great. And then one more question. Do students have to have their FAFSA updated before they can register for classes?
Not at the community colleges. The admission and registration process is generally a whole separate thing from the FAFSA. It's very important that they realize that they need to be doing both at the same time, but one is not necessarily dependent on the other because some students pay out of pocket.
But again, it is very important because when they register, that they know how they're going to finance their education.
Right. They need to keep check on that, and as we talked about their online account, they should be able to keep track of that in their online account as well and make sure that their financial aid is, all the requirements are in, and that their financial aid is ready to be applied to their account at the proper time.
And for Southwest, once you put in an application, our next step is that you go in and you create your account. So that's on we have a checklist for all of our students. And so once you make that account, then you can go ahead and you have your email set up and all of that.
Okay, so to clarify, at Southwest, they will get an email address and then they are able to register for classes, correct?
No, they're already, it's not necessarily dependent on that. But what I'm saying is that once they put in an application, it starts their account.
Okay.
And then the second step is that they go into our portal and they create their username and password.
Okay.
And at that time, yes, they will get there, but it's not, you don't have to, well, I guess you would have to have that, but it's not necessarily, it's automatically set up once you set up your username and password. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
All right. Well, I believe that those are all the questions. There are a few questions that came in that I am going to be directing directly to some folks at Tennessee Achieves who will be able to give you some more one-on-one answers, so be on the lookout for that. And I would like to thank you all for attending, and thank you very much for panelists for all the work that you put into preparing this presentation, and to all of you mentors for all the work that you are doing in helping all of these students access post-secondary education. We really, really appreciate it and are very proud of all the work that you're doing. So thank you very much, and once again, if you have any questions, or comments, my name is Kate Watts, and my email is kate.watts.
For tn.org today. College. You can get there from here.